I'm Curt Dupriez, this is Chasing Cars, and this is part 2 of our final wrap-up on the Hyundai Tucson Hybrid we've affectionately nicknamed ARI. In our intro video, we covered off what ARI is. We discovered that it's really got a silky powertrain, but we really didn't like the active annoyance system turn-off at startup. And in the middle of our custodianship, we did put ARI up against its natural nemesis in the Toyota RAV4 two-wheel drive cruiser. So check that out on our YouTube channel. Then in part 1 of our final wrap-up, we took a deep dive into the N-Line package and really went through the cabin to see how fit it is as a family hauler. And we covered off some shortcomings, such as the clumsy transmission selector and the strange ghost that lives in the tailgate. And here we are, the final swing and our final verdict of the Tucson before it goes back to its owner at Hyundai HQ tomorrow. This time we hit the road to suss out the final 2 hits and misses to make it 5 apiece. And we'll make the call whether we would like to hang on to ARI or we'll be happy to see it go. And let's start off with sportiness.
Chasing Cars, honest reviews of your next car.
Brought to you by
And hit number 4 is sportiness, and the breadth of variety that you do get when choosing different drive modes, and a lot of that has got to do with the transmission. The big plus is that the Tucson fits a conventional torque converter auto with real forward ratios, not a CVT with fake forward ratios like so many of its rivals. So unlike the unnatural experience that you might get in a RAV4 where it can flare the engine up, you get a natural turbocharged internal combustion experience with this particular hybrid system. But the big advantage is that when you do change drive modes, like activating in sport, you do get that natural lift from both the engine and the transmission, as you would expect. And the really handy complement here is that you do get paddle shifters, which are really quite responsive to the upshifts, and you only get that with that optional N-Line pack. Wrap that all up, and this N-Line really has some sporty character, and it's not slow either. But frankly, it's so drivable in its default eco mode that I very rarely see any need to have to switch it out to another mode. But miss number 4 is fuel consumption, and we really found that out when we put it up against RAV4 in our twin test. I've now done a number of interstate trips and hundreds of daily commutes, and fuel consumption really refuses to dip below about 5.5 litres, which isn't too bad, but it's measurably thirstier than the likes of RAV4. There is a saving grace, is that this turbo engine will run on crappy 91 RON fuel or E10, and servicing for 5 years is under $2,000. Hit number 5 is the Tucson chassis. There are a number of rivals that do ride well, and some of them are pretty decent handlers. But there's a real Goldilocks balance to ride and handling in this particular Tucson, especially if you have the N-Line package. The N-Line Spec 19s really bring some drivability advantages, and the steering is quite nice and sharp, and it tracks well in the corners. But the sense by the seat of the pants is that the 19s haven't impacted ride comfort or impacted it to really any significant measure. It's still really comfy in outright terms. There's plenty of grip too, and grip means traction, but it will still wheel spin a little bit if you do give it the berries, particularly in the wet. But miss number 5 for me is brake feel. The anchors do work powerfully and tirelessly, but they are a bit sharp in take-up underfoot. Yes, you do get used to their body nature, but when you're jumping in and out of lots of different vehicles like I am, you really do notice it. 5 hits, 5 misses, 6 months, what turned out to be 9,000 kilometres under its tyres. It's now time for our final verdict on ARI, the Hyundai Tucson Elite front-wheel drive hybrid with N-Line. And the verdict is overwhelmingly positive. Not just for me, but everyone in the Chasing Cars team who managed to drive it. The positives are very big, the negatives are very minor, and there are definitely no deal breakers in the Tucson pitch. In fact, it's been a bit of a personal trifecta for me because I really like my Lexus RX long-termer I call Chief, and I like my Honda CR-V long-termer that I called Fred. But I do reckon that ARI edges both of those out to be a bit of a personal favourite. It's more affordable than either of its forebears, and the Tucson definitely offers more hybrid choice than either Lexus or Honda. It's also superior to the Kia Sportage that former staffer Zach Adkins had for quite a long time, particularly when it comes to comfort and refinement. I really settled into ARI so quickly that perhaps the hardest part about this long-term experience is handing it back to Hyundai. I would actually stump up for the all-wheel drive system, but that really is more of an indulgence than a necessity, because it does a pretty good job as a front driver. The Tucson is highly recommended, and it definitely is one of the most critically successful midsize SUVs that you could possibly consider. Next up for me in the long-term garage is yet another hybrid SUV, but this one's got a very special twist. More on that a bit later. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe while you're at it, and if you're really interested, you can turn off that speed recognition system by holding down the volume dial for about 3 seconds. Thanks for watching Chasing Cars.